Howdy folks, this is Randy Ray at Driftwood Ranch, the Literate Texan, and I have been waiting with great anticipation to make and post this video for Tag Tuesday. I've been saving it, okay? I thought about just posting it on another day, but I want to participate, and that means doing tags on Tuesday. And I'm posting a little early because I just can't wait. But, you know, it's pretty late at night here. This way you'll have a Tag Tuesday video from me first thing in the morning if that's your thing. And this is the Rootin Tootin June on the Range tag. Last year when I was just a commenter and viewer of BookTube channels, Michael K. Vaughn created an event about reading Westerns called June on the Range. And in my own way, I did participate. I read a bunch of Westerns in June, which was a lot of fun. I like Westerns. And they're doing it again this year. Steve Donahue created this tag. He's one of the co-hosts. And this is to generate excitement about it. And I think Western novels are something to get excited about because there's some great literature there. So these questions looked like a lot of fun. I'm probably going to ramble a little bit. If you've watched any other of my videos, you probably know that that's what I do. If you like that sort of thing, you'll probably watch till I'm done or till you're bored. If you don't like that sort of thing, well, give it another minute or two. Maybe you'll like it, maybe you won't. Question number 1. A ways out west. Have you ever been to the American West? Okay, well, first of all, does Texas count? I think it does, okay? So, you know, Texas Rangers are a mainstay in Western literature, and guess what? They're from Texas. So that counts, but that's not the only place in the American West that I've been. My dad and I took a trip to Reno, Nevada in, I believe it was 2000, it might have been 2001. It was right after my mother died. We traveled out there to visit my birth mother and that side of the family. I was adopted by my birth mother's sister. And my birth mother was a raging alcoholic and couldn't raise any of her own children. So I was raised by my aunt. I was adopted at 3 days old. So my mom who raised me was the only mom I'd ever known, and I'd never met my birth mother. And so I went out there to meet her. And of course, all of her brothers and sisters were the brothers and sisters of the mom who had raised me, my real mom, okay? So it was a really exciting trip for me because, you know, there are a whole different bunch of people than my family down here in Texas. So it was a lot of fun. Anyway, that's why I was there. But the fun thing that we did while I was there, Daddy and I went to the Ponderosa, okay? So I don't know how many of my viewers, actually, you know what? I've seen the statistics on my viewers. Most of y'all have watched Bonanza. But the Ponderosa, as you know, having watched Bonanza, was the ranch where the action of the show was set. And it was the coolest thing, getting to see everything. It's much smaller inside than you think it's going to be, which, you know, shouldn't have been a surprise, but it kind of was. But one of the interesting things about going there was that Hoss, and I don't remember the name of the actor, Dan Blocker was the actor who played Hoss. I'm off my meds right now, so my memory's a little sharper than usual. Dan Blocker played Hoss, and Little Joe was played by Michael Landon. I could be making mistakes right now too, and I wouldn't know it, but that's, you know, what are you gonna do, right? So anyway, Little Joe had this green jacket that he used to wear during the show. In fact, if you've seen Django Unchained, the green jacket that Django wears in Django Unchained is based on the green jacket that Little Joe wore on Bonanza. So that jacket is hanging there on the wall as you come in the door, you know, beneath the hat rack on the coat rack. And Dan Blocker's jacket is there. And the tour guide explained to us that, you know, when they both left the show, and, you know, finished everything on the show, that's where they'd hung their jackets, and they'd been hanging there ever since. That was really cool because, like I say, this was 2000. I don't remember what year Bonanza went off the air, but I believe that the era of Westerns on TV it peaked in the 1960s. I can't imagine Bonanza was still on the air after 1970. Maybe it was, I don't know. But they kept that place looking about the same for 30 years. And I'll be honest with you, I'm not entirely sure where it was. Obviously, it was driving distance from Reno, Nevada, but I couldn't tell you where it was. But I could tell you this, it's in the American West, and it was cool. That's my answer to question number one. Question number two, Dry Gulch. What's the smallest town you've ever visited? My dad owned 2 acres of land in a tiny little rural town called Lamasco, Texas. And it has left the family now. But according to what I'm reading on the internet, the population was about 32 in the year 2000. It's probably grown quite a bit since then. They built a reservoir, a lake out in that area. And so the population's grown a lot. But I know my dad bought that 2 acres of land for a song. And we went out there and put a fence up around it. We built a 1-room cabin there. And Daddy liked to garden. And he liked going out there after work every day. He got off work at 4:30. Lamasco's just not very far from Bonham, Texas at all. It's maybe a 10-minute drive. So, he'd get off work, change into some outdoorsy clothes, and go out there and work in his garden. And he also raised fruit trees, and we grew melons in the garden. But with the wild animals, since there was no one living there, the wild animals got into all the cantaloupe and the fruit there on the ground, so we hardly got any of that. The pear trees there really thrived. Unfortunately, I'm not that big a fan of pears. They're all right, but the peach trees didn't do nearly as well. And I loved peach trees. And the second job I ever had, believe it or not, was working on a fruit farm harvesting peaches. So there's a little Randy Ray trivia you can surprise your booktube friends with. This is a 2-part question, by the way. That says, what's the smallest town you've ever visited? Lamasco, Texas, and then, I wonder if that's right. Yeah, Lamasco, Texas. There's a lot of small towns out there in Bonham. I thought I had it mixed up with Ladonia or Dial or Telephone, which I've been to all those towns. I didn't have time to look up the population for all of them, but all of them are really teeny tiny. There's also a town called Pecan Gap that my dad took me to for my birthday one year, and he wanted to take me to a restaurant there. And I said, well, what's the name of this restaurant? And he said, I don't know. We just call it Pecan Gap because that's the name of the town. The restaurant was only open on Fridays and Saturdays and nights. And it was on the square. And it was all you can eat catfish and shrimp. I don't remember how much it cost. Took forever to get there. There's nothing but 2-lane roads out there. It was country. But Pecan Gap was bigger than Lamasco when I looked it up online, looked up the population. So how small is your town right now? Unfortunately, my town right now is not that small, and it's not getting any smaller. I live in Denton, Texas, and we have 2 universities here, Texas Women's University, or TWU, and UNT, the University of North Texas. And as of 2020, population 140,000. This is my second time living in Denton. I've been here about 10 years now. My first time to live in Denton, I lived here for 7 years. I lived here from 1988 until 1995. And so, but, it's a great little town. It's getting bigger, but it hasn't gotten completely gentrified yet. And there's still a lot of really cool people here. A buddy of mine and I were talking earlier about Fry Street in Denton, Texas, which is like the Bourbon Street or Bill Street or 6th Street, depending on whether you're in New Orleans, Memphis, or Austin. See how I did that there and could remember the cities in orders, That's because I'm not taking my meds right now. So, and it's not anything to worry about. I'm going to get back on them. But I love having my mind back. This is the first time I felt like myself in about 18 months. It's terrific. So anyway, I live in Denton, Texas. I would call it a small city rather than a small town. Number 3, where the buffalo roam. Have you ever seen an American bison in person? No, I have not. Or, what's the largest hoofed animal you've ever seen? I've seen some pretty big cows. Or, do you have evidence that you live near coyotes? This is the question I should have answered right off, okay? Because, we got coyotes around here. And you can hear them howling in the distance if you go to one of these little small towns around Denton, Texas. You know, there's Crum, Texas, which is just outside of Denton, and there's Sanger, Texas, which is just outside of Denton, Texas. And I have a friend who lives out in Sanger, and we used to have a thing going, but that was 25, 30 years ago, something like that. Well, 95, 94, something like that. How long ago was that? Anyway, but we're still friends. And she's extremely gullible. And she was sitting out on her front porch one night, and she told me that she could hear the coyotes howling in the distance. And I told her that Sanger, Texas is the #1 spot in the country for death by a coyote. More people get killed by coyotes in Sanger, Texas than anywhere else in the country. Which is, of course, well, it might be true, but probably not, since I just made it up. But she believed me. I wasn't even drinking when I made that up. But yeah, no, we definitely live near coyotes around here. Evidence, I don't have any directed evidence, but there's plenty of anecdotal evidence. I mean, I've heard them howling in the distance, and you know, I have friends who've lost dogs to coyotes around. I think I might have seen a coyote over by my old apartment complex one time. I saw all kinds of interesting animals over there. Number 5, Diamond Lil at the Rialto saloon. What's your relationship with alcohol? Let me tell you this, Jackie Daniels was the worst girlfriend I ever had. I drank for 17 years. I stayed drunk more or less every day, with occasional respites that lasted for a week or two here and there. For 17 years, my drinking progressively got worse, which is what it does when you're an alcoholic like I am. It's a progressive illness. You know, over time we get worse, never better. Even if we stop drinking, which I've done. I gave up drinking. There's a line from a song that I really like by Chris Wall. It's, I gave up on drinking, but drinking never gave up on me. But I really did give up on drinking because I had to. I'd be dead by now if I hadn't quit drinking, because I was up to a half gallon of whiskey every day or two. So it was pretty bad. And my doctor, oh, y'all would love this. So I went to my doctor one time. And, you know, they make you fill out that paperwork, and the question on there is, how much do you have to drink? And I got all the options, and none of those options applied to me. And I thought to myself, well, what would a normal drinker circle here? And it said, I have 1 or 2 drinks a day. So that's what I circled. So the doctor took me aside and said, Randy, you know, I know it says here that you only have 1 or 2 drinks a day, but, you know, your liver function is really out of the ordinary. It's way below normal. What's that all about? Did you maybe fudge a little bit on that? And I said, well, I'll be honest, Doctor. Her name was Dr. Birdsong. She was lovely, wonderful, wonderful woman. She retired to go live in a teepee. That's what she told me. I wish she was still my doctor. But she said, well, Randy, tell me the truth about your drinking. How much do you drink? And I said, well, you know, I probably drank 3 or 4 gallons of whiskey a week, you know. I don't necessarily drink every day, but, you know, on the days I don't, I make up for it. And she said, oh, Randy, she said, you got to cut back on the drinking. You're only going to be able to skate by on youth and luck and good genetics for so long. And I'm proud to say that, you know, at the last few physicals I've had, liver function's just fine. Everything else is out of whack. I've got a list of 6 specialists I need to see, but none of those problems are related to my alcoholism, because I've been given the gift of sobriety since March 15th of 2014, and for that I'm very grateful. Have I ever had a friendship with a bartender? Bartenders loved me because I tipped really well, for multiple reasons. For one thing, when I was drunk, I tended to misbehave, and bartenders are more likely to overlook your poor behavior if they know they're getting a big tip at the end of the night. Occasionally I would have a friend, often a girlfriend, who would decide that I had had too much to drink, and she was going to talk to the bartender and convince him to cut me off. And again, since I'm the guy tipping at the end of the night and he knows how much I'm going to tip, he's going to side with me every time, which he did. Bless her heart, she's a wonderful woman. I'm still friends with her. But no, I was friends with, my favorite bartender that I ever had was Daryl at the King's Club. It's I used to drink at a bar in Dallas called the King's X Club on Forest Lane. and it had a maximum occupancy of 38 people. It was just a little hole in the wall bar. Everybody that was there was older than I was and drank more than I did. And Daryl used to tell us that he was the second best one-legged bartender in Dallas. And when we asked him who the best one-legged bartender in Dallas was, he refused to tell us. I suspect he was just being modest. I think he was probably the best one-legged bartender in town, although I don't know where you would go to get any kind of objective opinion on this. But Daryl was a great bartender, and yes, we were friends. I'd visited him at his house before, and he was a fine fella. Yeah, I've been friends with most. I'm 53 years old, and was a heavy drinker for half my adult life. Yeah, definitely had friends who were bartenders, and some of them were women, and some of the friendships went very well, as they sometimes do. Let's move on to question number 6. The City Slicker from back east. What do you consider the best Western you've ever read? That's a really tricky one because I haven't read Lonesome Dove yet, but everybody tells me it's going to be the best one that I've ever read. But I really enjoyed True Grit, which is a wonderful novel, and the 2 movie versions are also terrific. So True Grit, but Shane by Jack Schaefer. I would give Shane the nod over that one. And you might disagree with my taste or tell me. I think Shane really, everybody still talks about True Grit a lot. Shane is such a wonderfully written novel, and it's so short and it's over so quickly, and you wish that it weren't. The movie's still wonderful. Shane has been remade multiple times under different names. It's kind of like The Searchers in that respect, which, I don't know if you know this or not, but The Searchers is my favorite Western. Stars John Wayne. It's absolutely terrific. John Ford film. And the plot line to Taxi Driver and to a movie called Hardcore, which starred George C. Scott, is basically the same as The Searchers, only set in modern times, and it's not a Western. But The Searchers is absolutely terrific. It might be based on a novel. I don't know. I haven't read the novel. But the movie Shane was remade in the same way as it was the inspiration for a lot of the plot points of a movie called Pale Rider, which starred Clint Eastwood. And if you're one of my subscribers, you're probably old enough to remember Pale Rider, even if you haven't seen it. Pale Rider's terrific, by the way. And the plot line to Shane plays a big role in a movie called Logan, which is about Wolverine. And it's a terrific film. It's way better than I even expected. Because, well, let's face it, the Wolverine movie before that wasn't particularly good. But it's a terrific movie. Watch Shane before you watch Logan, though, and you can see how important it is. So, yeah, those are my 2 favorite Western novels so far. But I got to give a couple honorable mentions out there. Anything for Billy by Larry McMurtry is wonderful. And I'd read it again in a heartbeat and may even get to it at some point. Horseman Pass By is also terrific. And it was made into a wonderful movie called HUD, starring Paul Newman, which is 60 years old today, if I'm not mistaken. Wonderful black and white movie with Paul Newman called HUD. Well worth seeing. And he does not play a likable character in this movie. Number 8, The Tombstone Kid. Have you ever fired a gun? Yes. I was at a friend's house. They had a pistol. There was a piece of tin in what they call the pool. People up north would probably call it a pond. People around here call it a pool. But it's not like a swimming pool. It's just a pond. And, we were taking turns trying to shoot the tinfoil. I did not hit it. And I don't have a lot of sense. People like me don't need guns. Apparently I didn't pay much attention to where it was pointing, and I pointed it towards the highway, and my friends got on to me. It's like, what are you doing handing me a gun anyway? So no, I'm not a gun aficionado, and I have never been shot. But yeah, I don't think I'll ever fire a gun again. I know a lot of people think it's a lot of fun. I don't begrudge them, they're fun. But yeah, I'm just not a gun guy. Just not me. I'm two-step though. Number 9, it ain't the bullet that gets you, it's the fall. How would you ideally like to cash in your chips? Well, you know, that's a tricky one. After a really good day, I'd like to time my sleep after a really great day. You know, I'd like to have a day where I spent some time with my family, spent some time with my friends, did some reading, ate a really good meal, possibly fooled around with a beautiful woman before I went to sleep, and then just died in my sleep, quietly, without a lot of fuss, without a lot of pain. Number 10, tag some owl hoots. I've seen a bunch of my friends on BookTube already doing this tag, and they're the ones who would be the most likely suspects for me to tag. So I'm kind of gonna do the whole cop-out thing of just consider yourself tagged if you want to do this tag. But I'm not sure if the Evening Reader has done this tagging. She and I are both doing a buddy read of Lonesome Dove, starting in just 3 days. So I'm not sure how that's going to play out on our YouTube channels. I need to talk to her about that. But if she hasn't already done this, she's tagged. And that's all for this video. I hope you enjoyed listening to me ramble on about the Rootin Tootin June on the Range Tag Tuesday, as much as I enjoyed rambling on about it and answering these questions. And I hope to see you soon. Get ready for a lot of updates about Larry McMurtry, because if I can finish Lonesome Dove fast enough, I'm going to hit those 3 prequels and sequels, which Steve Donahue said weren't very good, but I'm going to give them a chance anyway, because I am, if I get to them. Anyway, thanks for watching.